And yeah, let's hear it. I haven't heard Sam Black's podcast yet, so I'm a bit behind there. But bring it to me.
The great advantage of not being monetized in any way in your content creation is you can recommend other people that are excellent, like Jihash here in the audience. That's one definitely thing that you can recommend. But Sam's Black podcast is just fantastic. He focuses on one archetype every week, and he did quite some few on the Zendikar Rising to start with. And last week he had the first one about the black green elves, and he just used his galaxy brain to try to figure out how the elves are working. As a caveat, I did my skeleton before I heard the podcast, and I didn't change it afterwards, I think. So this is my own thoughts about how it should look like, and I think I'll add maybe a couple of thoughts that he had. But if there's something lacking, it's my fault, not his. So shall we start with the uncommons maybe? And like we did last time, we start with the uncommons that are the more expensive ones, and we go down in the mana curve, and then we can go commons up the mana curve.
For sure, for sure. I was making a note to self that I have to link to the podcast in the YouTube video. Yeah, sure. Let's dive into the uncommons. Let's dive into
Hi, Bazu.
cheap ones first. Hey, Alto. Good evening, mate. Finn the Fangbear. It's the first one that I came across. Going from
Okay, yeah, that's the first time. Okay, we go from down then. So I put it in, even though, as you can see from the skeleton, it's mainly based on elves. But I think that this creature has a great rate, and it has some hidden synergies in the black-green especially. So it's a 1/3 with Death Touch, and basically each creature with Death Touch you control has Infect 2, basically. So it puts 2 poison counters every time it deals damage to a player. And I think it just fits well with this Go Wide archetype and with the Black-Green Saga on that uncommon, which the last chapter of it is pretty useless if you don't have this guy, but can be a game-winning thing when you have it.
right.
Because the last chapter gives all your creature Death Touch, and then if you have 6-7 creatures, you can attack with everything, and they have to trade all their board with you, and if they don't, they just die, and if they do, and you still manage to squeeze through with a couple of things, you can keep the, is it Finn? You can keep Finn not attacking, and then you can use it later to deal the last couple of infect counters to the opponent. So it's a sort of like a mini pocket of synergy. It can go much harder on that if you draft the right cards. I did some drafts and drafts, and when I had this weird combination of Death Touch Tribal, when you could actually go to town with your Death Touch attackers and use a couple of the Finns to put the infect counters and win this way. Because I think that the main problem that the elves will have is it doesn't have much reach, so you don't have those super large creatures. You try to put a wide variety of 1/1s, and because of that, you want to focus on going wide, and you want to focus on dealing those incremental damages with Death Touch, for example, and winning this way.
Yeah.
So that's why I would put it there.
Because within this skeleton, I noticed only Finn and the Saga have Death Touch, right? There's no other Death Touch synergies on the cards here. So
yeah,
the rune might be one include, right? The black rune.
The black rune one might be a very good include, and then you can combine it with things like Raven Wings.
Yeah.
Where you can give flyer to your Death Touchers and you can win in this way. There is the rare that it's making an elf every time you cast an elf. It's making a 1/1 elf token, and for 7 mana, it gives all your elves +2/+2 and Death Touch, if I'm not mistaken.
Which one is it?
Different rare.
Yeah.
It's not in here, but there is this rare.
Okay. There
I think I had to decide which one I'm going to put because both of them are excellent in the archetype. I chose the Saga, but the other one is more synergistic with the Death Touch.
Yeah,
Plus, you can have some kind of weird interactions like the 2/3 haste flying Death Toucher for 4 mana at uncommon in black.
Yeah. Something else that I noticed is that although it's not an elf Finn, he is a warrior, right? So you can still fishing up with Harold. That's a nice added bonus.
Yeah, so Harold is actually good in that because almost all green creatures are changelings, warriors, or elves. So he will basically fetch almost every creature that you possibly can in
Yeah,
green,
I noticed that.
and
Yeah.
and at least some of the black ones as well.
Should
So
we
are we moving
read?
to Harold then?
Should we read some of the cards out loud? Do you think, or
Sure,
I mean, they are pretty new, so we can definitely move to
sure.
Harold. I think he's the next uncommon in line. So Harold, King of Scamfar, costs 1 generic mana, 1 black, 1 green. It's a 3/2 elf warrior with menace. When Harold enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an elf, warrior, or Tiefar card from among them. So just one. It could be an elf and a warrior or a Tiefar card from among them, and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And there Tiefar is referring to the Planeswalker, of course. I assume.
Yeah. Which is another fair good rare to put in this deck. And you know, the good part is that all those rares are probably going to be only you're the only person wanting them, to be fair, if on the pod, unless there is a second black green drafter, and in that case you probably end up with a poor deck anyway. So
yeah, right.
because all of them are super synergistic only with this archetype, and that's a big strength of it, because if things for the archetype are going to be open in your pod, you probably should get them unless someone really wants the mythics for collection or something like that.
Yeah. Yesterday we talked about binding the old gods, maybe being a splashable card in Dimir, for example, or other snow archetypes,
binding will be,
but that's not the case for the rares. I agree.
No, exactly. So binding will be highly contested, and you want to pick it up as highly as possible. But Harold and the other the rare saga and the elf pump guy that makes elves, these are the things that probably you're going to be the only person on the pod interested in, which is great.
Yeah, agreed.
And also, I mean, it's a small thing, but Harold has Menace, which is combos with the King Harold's Revenge, in a way. I put it in. I don't know if that card is going to be good, but we can talk about it later. But it is a combo there.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, we can talk about it now, right? It's right on top of the Herald.
Okay, no, binding. Yeah. Oh, you mean the common?
Yeah. You were talking about that, right?
Yeah. So this one gives to a target creature +1/+1 for each creature you control until end of turn. It gains trample, and it must be blocked this turn if able. Which means that normally you will play it on something, make it +5/+5, hopefully, because you want to be going wide, which is quite a lot for 3 mana. It gives it trample, so it's not something that can be chumped. It will put some damage through, and basically it will kill one creature, deal some damage, and that's how you use the spell. However, with Harold, because he has Menace, the rules say so that it has to be double blocked then. If an opponent has 2 creatures untapped and able to block, they will have to block with both of them. So it can easily turn Harold into killing 2 creatures, maybe surviving themselves, and letting you go through with your creatures that are not Harold.
Yeah, I like the flavor there. Good one.
So that's something that I found in Ikoria, because Ikoria had this 5 mana thing that gave +5/+5, maybe, I want to say, or +7/+7, and didn't give trample, but the creature had to be blocked if possible. There was something for 5 mana. I don't remember the name of the card.
Me neither.
Cycling.
I'm way less high on Ikoria than most.
And trust me, playing it on a creature with a triple menace and then making an opponent blocking it with 3 creatures, killing them, and your guy survives, it was a good feeling.
I can imagine. Shall we talk about binding a bit? We talked about it yesterday, but it's new now. It's a saga. It's 4 mana, 2 colors, 1 black, 1 green. It has 3 chapters. The first chapter is immediately one of the better chapters, I think, which is fun in this set, right? The sagas immediately have impact when you play them. They don't ramp up. Here the first chapter is destroy target a non-land permanent an opponent controls. So immediately it's a destroy spell for 4, but then it has some added bonuses. The turn after you may search your library for a forest card. And as we discussed yesterday, most of the snowlands also count as forests. Both the snow forest and the dual color lands.
The duals that give green, yeah.
Yeah, so that's ideal. Put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library, and then the third chapter is creatures you control gain death touch, as you already mentioned earlier, right? The synergy with Finn. So great card, great
most
card.
Of the time it's a trinket text. So lots of the time it's a trinket text, but actually it's in a gold white deck. It's not terrible because you can swing with quite some few creatures, and they have to really think hard about who are they going to block. Especially when you manage to get them to some lower life totals, they will really have to think hard how they're going to arrange the blocks when everything has death touch. So
Yeah,
that's a cool interaction.
definitely. Fully agree. Okay.
And this card, I mean, it's a no-brainer, especially the fact that the first chapter
Destroy
is the most
something.
impactful. So you play it, and even if they have a disenchant effect, you already did your stuff, and they will still have to lose the card to prevent all the other small things from happening. Second of all, the destroyed non-land permanent is much better than destroy target creature because you can remove this annoying equipment that they have, or you can remove the pacifism effect from your creature and start smashing with that. So it's a good thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you wanna? What are your thoughts on the fact that that most of these sagas have the strongest chapter first, and you don't have
I
to
don't think
ramp
all
up?
of them have. I think I think that I like in the saga that the first chapter is the most impactful because then I don't feel like it's a risk of playing a card, and also it doesn't give the opponent time to set up for the most powerful effect. They have to be caught,
I
offside basically
I understand. I
when you
understand.
play it.
But most
So
sagas that I remember that were good, even though it was their third chapter that was very good, I never felt at risk playing those cards. Right? I mean, most
no,
of
no,
them
no,
were
no.
just very strong.
Still, but I mean, if Elspeth Conquers Death would have the destroyed exile permanent as the last chapter, it would not see the standard play, I guess, and
Fair
that's
enough.
that's what they were thinking about. They want to make sagas that are good for limited, but also can be impactful for constructed play. And I think Binding of the Old Gods will see some play because it's such a powerful effect in standard, at least.
Sure. Yeah. Fair enough.
So I mean, they have to think about balancing the sets for both constructed and for standard, and I think that's why they went this design. But there are a couple of sagas that are quite good as the small thing, and like the red white one that puts a treasure counter, and then you can look for the equipment from your deck. So it's sort of
Right.
slightly ramps you in the first two chapters, and the last one is actually when you get the card back.
Yeah. Do you wanna go over the next uncommon, which is Scamfar Shadow Sage? Do you wanna do
Okay,
you wanna take this one?
I mean, I think it's a great card for this deck, but I think it's a great card in general for black because in the controlish builds of black decks, it will gain you some life, most of the time 2-3 life, and then it's a good blocker. 5 toughness is really powerful in this set, it seems to me, by the how the powers and toughness of other creatures align.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's quite cool. And in this deck, I mean, this can be easily a sort of like Gary. So you play it when you have 6 elves on board and you just deal the last 6 damage, or you leave your opponent at 2 and then you smash with the small elves and they are in the big trouble. So that's I guess the way of playing with it here. And of course, in this deck, probably it would be better if it was like 2-3, but for 1 mana less, because you want to actually reanimate it in some way. You want to recast it, and you maybe use your raised drugger and to play it again and deal another bunch of damage, but it's not so easy. That's why maybe this is a prime target for late game village rights, where you just sacrifice it, recast it, and you win the game in this way.
Yeah, that's definitely
I
a
mean,
line I'm going to look for.
to put it like this, very often when you play with those aggressive small go wide decks, you run out of steam, and then you just wait with your creature looking at their big blockers, and you're just like thinking of one card that you can draw, and this is going to be that card quite often in Kaldheim.
Yeah, sure. I like it. Let's see what other uncommons do we have. Return Upon the Tide, 5 mana sorcery spell that returns target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, so it's a reanimation spell in that sense. If it's an elf, create 2 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens.
I mean, yeah, I mean, this doesn't require much thought.
Explanation.
It's perfect. It's perfect for elves because even though your creatures are smaller, they come with 2 other bodies, which is great. And I put the 5 mana 5/5 vanilla elf, which I think is not going to be terrible in this deck, especially when you can somehow play it, attack, lose it by double blocking most of the time in this format, and then you can reanimate it with the Return to Tide and get 2/1/1 elves on top of everything. So I think it's not going to be a terrible card, this one.
Yep.
I've seen a couple of things from the early streamers event, and 5/5s were terrifying on the other side of the board.
Nice.
I actually seen Duke Reed demolish Ethan from Lords of Limited, basically by smashing with a 5/5.
Sweet. Just to make sure, how does Return Upon the Tide play with Scamfar Shadow Sage? Does it deal 2 extra damage from the tokens, I assume?
I think that they enter the. I think they enter equally. I'm not a judge, and I never aspired to be quite the opposite. But I think it does deal the 2 extra damage if you do that. Yeah,
I think so as well. Yeah, so that's a sweet interaction to to look for, I think. You also included the Elder Hall, which is the black green land. As we discussed yesterday, right? All of those are includable in any of the color pairs.
They're definitely. I just didn't dare to put them above the uncommon limit, but I think that they will be quite available, and they will be actually a good signal if your color pair is open because they're so good.
Yeah, and this one. Yeah, go ahead.
This one is top. I mean, because it puts the 2 elves, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And
gives a creature you don't control -2/-2, so that's like a kill on a smaller creature. And then you create 2 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens. Activate its ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery, of course, which is the case for most of them.
Jihash, that's a good question. I think that the black-white is still good because in that particular deck you want to play many kind of 1/1s that do something on the enter to the battlefield to be able to, you can double spell and get some effect, and you have those leftover 1/1s that you can sacrifice easily. And I just think that black-white is a better color combination. So in that way, black-white land is better because it puts you in a better color. But I think that when you would compare them in the equal archetypes, I think that the Elder Hall is just better. Yeah.
Yep. Great card. I noticed that a lot of the elves are warriors, right? Or is it just the tokens? No, the Outrider is one as well.
Yeah. If you look at the tribe statistics, there's so many warriors you don't even realize because it's not a theme, but almost everything in white and green is warriors for some reason.
Wanna go in already, or do you wanna say something more about it? So we discussed the uncommons. The idea is clear, right? We're elf tribal here. We have a lot of elf payoffs. Any other interesting synergies that you maybe want to highlight here?
Not on the uncommon level. I mean, the rest of the cards, most of them are elves, and the other things are just card draw 3/3s, which are great in any green deck, I would think.
Yeah. There's 2 pack mates. 2 pack mates in every skeleton that you build that has green in it.
Because why not? It's a 3/3 that replaces itself instantly, and 3/3 is not a bad stat line in this format. And also, I think Raven Wings are going to be quite important in this deck because I think it blacks in reach, and this one allows you to turn your useless 1/1s into 2/1 flyers, which can actually do some damage.
For sure. Yeah, I think most flyers will actually trade off with a 2/1. Outside of the 4/4 angels, of course, that is.
So I put Struggle for Scamfar, which is the fight spell that puts the +1/+1 counter into the skeleton. I just don't know if that's such an excellent card in this particular deck because your creatures are small, they're 1/1s, and I don't know if they are just good enough. But you can probably use it on something like the Death Knell Berserker, give it +1/+1, fight something, die, but you get a 2/2 back, which is okay.
Yeah.
And maybe you have the 5/5 elf and you can ramp it and kill something bigger if you need to. But it will have problems. That's why this deck will probably need some hard removal for the big blockers like the 3/6 cat, or even an ox can be a problem for you.
Yeah, fair enough. So for that we have the binding, we have the Feed the Serpent.
Yeah, I mean, Feed the Serpent is just such a good card and such a good raid. I think that this deck can be made in a sort of more dirtly version with quite more of the Raise the Draugr, and you basically sort of shuffle your creatures from the graveyard to the back to play. You play Elder Leaf Mentors, the 3/2s that bring in the 1/1 elf. And I think that what it really misses, and I sometimes think that it can be a card that would find a good home here if you can splash it reliably, is the Inspired Charge, the +2/+1 in white. Because it only costs 1 white, I think you can sort of consider splashing it if you have a couple of those snow-covered green-white lands, which should be quite easy to get.
Right. Another card that would be good here, I think, is the artifact Shapeshifter, right? That gives a +1/+1 counter to a creature of a certain type when it enters the battlefield. So that makes your tokens
I think that's an excellent shout. Especially when you look at the mana curve of this deck, there's lots of 2 spells.
Yeah.
There's quite some 4 spells, but there's not much in the 3 mana.
Right, we only
curve.
have 2 here actually, and I think
this is a card that Sam Black was actually talking about not being a decent player in this particular deck.
Yeah. I can imagine. I think it was Giash who replied to Card Kingdom or Draft Him Pick One Pack One. And there was a Fetus Serpent in the pack, and there was also the blue uncommon artifact that you can pay a snow mana to tap something. And what would you pick out of those 2 cards?
In the early format, I would pick the Icier Manipulator in the early format, but I think that the later the format goes, the more I will be stuck on drafting thirdly aggro decks rather than super risky snow strategies. So I guess we'll have to see how people draft a bit, because if ice is uncontested in the early days, it's probably the best pathway to get there.
Yeah. Gia's was on feet, and I think I agree with him that's the but feet being 2 black made me think about it.
It's still, I mean, such a good card. The only problem is it's a one for one. So I agree that with grinders it's going to be very popular, but we have to keep in mind that quite a large part of arena drafters are not grinders, and they just draft whatever they please, and there is no method in it.
No.
Oh, it's a shame that you missed yesterday, because we talked quite a lot about the blue-green sort of multicolor snow decks.
Yeah.
And I think that they're not going to be something like it was in Modern Horizons. I didn't draft a lot of it, to be fair, because I'm not an MTGO player, and it was quite expensive in the local game store, so no one wanted to play it.
Yeah,
but I've seen that how people are building those skeletons, and it looked like it was super. Also, keep in mind they have the Astrolabe, which was
also small,
which was busted.
Small little shameful plug here. The video on the Simic deck is on YouTube.
It is. If you have trouble sleeping, you can. My soothing voice can put you to sleep very quickly.
Yep. Sure. Let's have a look here. Oh, we're also interested in shapeshifters, right?
Oh yeah, so this is one card I didn't put. The 1/3 destroy an artifact or enchantment shapeshifter, which is also an elf, of course.
Right.
And I think that all these cards are super replaceable. I think that you can put them instead of the 2/2 berserkers, because there were not so many synergies with those. They are very easily replaceable. I think that this deck has a wide variety of replaceable cards. So actually, this is something that Sam Black said. You probably want to go into this archetype when you have those super good rare payoffs, and you get them, and then you want to start drafting elves. And you don't want to go there just on the pure strength of commons. It's not that kind of a deck.
Okay, sure. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. So currently I'm looking not only at black, green, and black, green, gold cards. I'm also looking specifically at elf and shapeshifters, assuming we highly prioritize those due to the nature of the deck. And you can see there are quite some. There are 2 1-mana elf shapeshifters, the Dusk Wielder, which is the the boast one, where you have to pay 1 to drain 1.
That one is not great, is it?
It isn't. There's also the Jaspera Sentinel. It's the 1/2 with reach that you can tap an untapped creature you control at 1 mana of any color. What do you think of that one?
I think it's a constructed card.
Fair
People
enough.
were quite thinking that it's one of the top 5 commons with an impact on standard, but I don't think it's a great card in the unless there is going to be some kind of a weird 5-color deck, the sort of Terrace style.
Yeah, interesting. Quite a lot of 2-drops. Dead Null Berserker, we know that one. It's the 2/2 black one that can drop the zombie if you can get its power up to 3.
Yeah, so this card will become better and better the more ways you get of making it a 3.
Yeah, correct. Correct. So I liked the inclusion of the fight spell, for example, that you had, right? It's able to.
Yeah, the wings are also good because they give +1 attack this time. It's not just flying, it's +1/+0 flying.
Yeah.
And it becomes a bird on top of everything. If you have bird synergies, who knows?
Yeah, yeah, I think this card with the wings is very good. Of course, there's the red, the Elder Fan Disciple on 2. There's also a Guardian, a Glade Walker, a Changeling Shapeshifter. It's the 1/1 that puts a 1/1 counter on target creature. That's a card we've seen before.
Oh yeah. That's also good in this archetype, yeah.
I think so as well.
And it also, this is excellent with the
Dead Null
with the
Berserker.
Berserkers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice combo. And then here's the Masked Vandal that you mentioned, right? The Shapeshifter, 1/3 for 2. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, exile target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls.
And I think that a lot of how you build this deck is going to be synergies of those 2-drops, and they are all quite synergistic, which is a nice thing. It's just that on their own, their synergies are not impactful enough to win games, so you need something like on the top of the curve to really assert authority. But they're all great, and because of they have so many synergies, they leave the disposable 1/1 bodies, so you can play Village Rites in quite some copies in this deck. They have come into play effects, which is great because you can play the +2/+0 and the creature returns to the battlefield after it dies trick. So,
Yeah, lots to do there. Also interesting that the tier score, the average one of these 2-drops is close to a C+, right? So 3.25 is C+, so quite some.
According to Alex, yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
Just so people don't think that it's our rubbish tier list. No, it's a renowned Court of Calls tier list.
Renowned tier list. So this is the actual truth, let's say.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Sculptor of Winter is also not bad because you will get a couple of those snowlands and you can ramp yourself into something. You can play this on turn 2 and then on turn 3 you can smash the 3/2 that brings another elf and you start wider.
Anything else you want to add on this color pair, or shall we move on to the next one on the list?
I think we can move to the next one on the list. That's not a problem.